Get ready, because we're diving deep today into some wild ideas about consciousness and reality and how we can transform ourselves. You sent over some really interesting stuff for this one, a YouTube video with a channeling session with this entity called Bashar.
Yeah, Bashar's ideas, they've become pretty popular, like among people who are into spirituality, but also even some scientists are paying attention.
Yeah, and I can see why. Bashar makes some pretty out there claims like, are we all living in a simulation? Can we shift to different versions of Earth? And what's the deal with sunflowers and radioactivity? Sounds kind of like science fiction, to be honest. But
Yeah.
okay, let's start with the simulation idea. Bashar says that our physical reality is like a holographic projection of consciousness.
Right. And it's not as crazy as it might sound at first. It actually lines up in some ways with the simulation hypothesis that's been getting more attention in physics and computer science.
Yeah.
Basically, it says that our reality could actually be like a super complex computer program.
So it's like we're all in some advanced version of the Matrix. Whoa, okay. But if that's true, what does it even mean for us, in our normal lives?
That's the big question. It's not really about like proving or disproving the simulation thing, but more about how this idea can change how we understand reality. It makes us rethink things like perception, free will, and how we relate to the world around us.
I can see how that would get people thinking. One of the things that really stood out to me from Bashar is that we don't actually change the world directly, but instead we shift to different versions of Earth by changing our own internal vibration.
That idea is based on this principle of resonance. It suggests that everything in the universe vibrates at a certain frequency
Yeah.
and like attracts like. So our internal state, it acts like a magnet, bringing in experiences that match our main vibration. Think about how you feel when you're around someone who's really happy. Their energy, it rubs off on you, right? Imagine that, but across your whole reality.
Wow, that's a pretty intense image. But I gotta ask, if this resonance thing is true, doesn't it mean we also attract bad experiences? How does that work with choosing our own reality?
That's a good question. Bashar would probably say that even negative experiences ultimately help us grow and evolve. It's not about avoiding negativity completely, but understanding the lessons it gives us and choosing to shift our vibration to a more positive one.
Okay, but how do we actually do that? What are some real ways to change our internal vibration?
There are a bunch of techniques, but one that's really powerful is visualization. If we can really vividly imagine ourselves living in the reality we want, we start to match our energy to that. Another is gratitude, which helps raise our vibration by making us focus on the good things we already have.
So it's about consciously choosing the thoughts and feelings we want to have.
Yeah, exactly. It's about becoming the boss of our inner world.
Hmm.
Recognizing that our thoughts and emotions aren't just things that happen to us, but they're forces that shape our reality.
This is making me rethink my whole approach to personal growth. But there's another thing that really caught my eye. Bashar says that everything we experience is ultimately our choice, even if it's unconscious. But if we're always choosing, how does destiny fit in?
That gets into this old debate about free will versus determinism. Do we have total control over our lives, or are we bound by fate? Maybe it's both. Maybe we have a destined path, but within that path, we have tons of choices that shape what happens.
So it's like we have a general direction, but we get to pick the exact route.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. Like having a script, but we're allowed to improvise the lines. We might choose to go to the grocery store, but all the little interactions we have, the stuff we buy, the ones are choices that affect our overall experience. And those choices are often driven by deeper beliefs and reasons that we might not even realize.
This leads to another interesting thing Bashar talks about. He calls it the power of definitions, saying that we always choose what we think benefits us, even if it seems harmful on the surface.
This makes us look deeper at our actions and see the beliefs behind them. Think about a time you did something you knew wasn't good for you. Like maybe you ate a whole bag of cookies even though you were trying to eat healthier, or put off something important even though you knew it would just stress you out later. What was the reward in those moments? What belief made you do that?
I get it. It's like there's always some benefit we think we're getting, even if it's not actually good for us.
Right. And cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, it has some really helpful ways to find and challenge those beliefs that hold us back. It's about becoming aware of the stories we tell ourselves and choosing better ones.
This is making me rethink my whole relationship with those late night snacks. But how do we actually break those habits that are so ingrained? Bashar seems to say that habits aren't failures, but signs pointing to beliefs we need to look at.
Yes, and that's a much more helpful way to think about them. Instead of feeling bad about what we see as our flaws, we can use them as clues to understand what's really motivating us. Bashar says to keep digging, keep asking why, until you find the core belief that's causing the habit.
I like that. It's like being a detective of your own mind. But how do we actually challenge those deep beliefs once we find them?
That can be tough, because our beliefs often feel so real and strong. But research on how habits form shows that repeating things and getting rewards play a big part in making those connections in our brains. If we understand how habits work at that level, we can consciously break the cycle and make new, healthier ones. It takes effort and consistency, but it can be done.
This reminds me of something specific from the channeling session. The person asking the questions mentions sensing Bell Rock and Sedona, and Bashar said that was where their ship was. They even talked about Sedona being this kind of energy amplifier.
Right. Bashar calls Sedona a mirroring magnifier. What you bring into Sedona gets amplified, whether it's peace and joy or fear and negativity. It's a powerful reminder that we create our reality everywhere we go, not just in Sedona.
So if you're feeling anxious or stressed, those feelings would be stronger in Sedona.
Maybe, yeah. It's like
Wow.
shining a light on your internal state. But on the other hand, if you're feeling centered and aligned, those positive emotions would also be amplified. It all goes back to that idea of resonance we were talking about before.
Okay, this is all super fascinating. But we still haven't talked about the sunflower thing. What's the connection between sunflowers and radioactivity?
That's a really interesting one, and it actually ties into some of the big themes we've been exploring today.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more.
Well, in the video, they mentioned sunflowers being able to absorb radioactivity like it's no big deal.
It does sound pretty crazy. How do they even do that? Are they like little plant superheroes?
It's a cool example of what they call bioremediation, which means using living things to clean up pollution. Sunflowers have been shown to actually soak up radioactive cesium and strontium from contaminated soil and water. They pull the bad stuff up through their roots and store it in their, plant body.
So they're like natural filters taking out the dangerous stuff.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is how this connects back to some of Bashar's main ideas. He often says we should look to nature for solutions to problems that seem impossible to solve.
So instead of just trying to contain or get rid of nuclear waste, which can be super complicated and expensive, maybe we could use sunflowers to help clean it up.
That's one possibility, and it shows how powerful it can be to work with nature instead of against it. It reminds us that nature's been figuring things out for billions of years, often in ways we're only starting to grasp.
This makes me think of biomimicry, where scientists and engineers study how nature designs and builds things to come up with new technologies and solutions. It's like nature is this huge library of ideas just waiting for us to discover them.
Totally. And this ties into another cool concept. Bashar mentions Homo divinicus. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, the video touched on it, but I'd love to hear more. What exactly does Homo divinicus mean? It sounds like something out of a myth.
It's presented as this possible next step in human evolution where we totally embrace how connected we are to everything. Imagine like a better version of ourselves where we act from a place of unity, compassion, and expanded awareness. It's about seeing our own inherent divinity, not in a religious way, but as part of the creative force that runs through everything.
So less Homo sapiens and more like Homo awesome.
You could say that. It's about going beyond the limits of our current ego-driven consciousness and tapping into a higher level of awareness.
Okay, but how do we actually make that leap? It sounds like a pretty huge change in how we think.
It starts with changing ourselves from the inside out. Remember those limiting beliefs we were talking about before? As we let go of those beliefs and embrace our true potential, our reality starts to reflect that change. It's not about waiting for something outside of us to happen or for someone to save us. It's about becoming the change we want to see.
So it's about actually living it out, not just talking about it.
Exactly. It's about making our actions match our highest values. When we live with integrity and authenticity, it has this ripple effect that goes way beyond just ourselves.
This has been a mind-blowing deep dive. We've covered so much, from the nature of reality to the power of personal transformation. It's a lot to take in.
It is, and there's no need to rush it.
Yeah.
Let these ideas sink in, see what feels true to you. Go explore these concepts more on your own time.
That's great advice. I think one of the biggest things I'm taking away from this is that we have way more power than we realize to shape our own reality. It's exciting, but also kind of scary.
It's definitely both. But that's what makes this journey so amazing. It's a constant process of discovery and exploration, and there's always something new to learn.
So if we're all creating our own reality, why do we see so much conflict and suffering in the world?
That's something people have wondered about forever.
Yeah.
Philosophers and spiritual seekers. Bashar would probably say it comes down to people having different beliefs and vibrating at different frequencies. When people are coming from a place of fear and lack and feeling separate, it shows up as conflict and suffering for everyone.
That makes sense. But if we can shift to different versions of Earth just by changing our vibe, wouldn't that mean everyone on the planet has to be on board for things to really change? It seems kind of impossible to get everyone vibrating at the same high frequency.
It's not necessarily about everyone being totally in sync. It's more about reaching a critical mass. As more people start to embrace higher vibrations like love, compassion, and unity, it creates this ripple effect that can influence the consciousness of everyone.
So it's like a tipping point where enough people changing their vibration can create a more positive reality for everyone.
Exactly. It's like changing the channel on a radio. You don't have to change the radio itself, just the frequency you're tuned into. And as more people tune into that higher frequency, the signal gets stronger and clearer.
I like that analogy,
Mhm.
but it still feels like a huge thing to try to do. How can we as individuals actually make a difference in a world that often feels so messed up and divided?
It starts with working on ourselves. When we heal our own stuff, let go of limiting beliefs, and step into our true power, we become like these beacons of light that can inspire others. It's not about forcing change on anyone, but being the change we want to see.
So it's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. It's about making sure our actions line up with our values. When we live with integrity and authenticity, it creates this ripple effect that goes way beyond just us.
This whole deep dive has been amazing. We've covered so much from the nature of reality to how we can transform ourselves. It's a lot to think about.
It is. And you don't have to figure it all out right now. Just let these ideas sit with you for a while. See what resonates. Keep exploring these concepts on your own.
And remember, this is just one way of looking at things. There are tons of other perspectives out there. The important thing is to stay curious, keep asking questions, and keep expanding your awareness.
I love that. The journey of self-discovery never really ends. It's about being open to the unknown and trusting the process.
We've talked about so much today, but there's always more to discover. So until next time, keep diving deep. And don't forget, you are a powerful creator. You have the ability to shape your own reality. What will you choose to create?